The next shape we're going to look at is a cone. This is our form that we're going to use. Light will be over from this side, so this will be our light side, our shadow side. And because the light's high up, we'll get a little bit of an arc of light through this front, just a smidge, before it goes to the darkest part. So that's going to be our base. The first thing that I do when I look at a cone shape is I look at how much of this bottom circle. Just like with a sphere, if you look at it this way, it's very circular at the base. But the more you tilt it, the flatter that circle becomes. And I'm sitting this on a table about 15 inches lower than my eye level, so I can see quite a bit of the shape of the base. So it's not a total circle round, but it is something of a wide ellipse. So I think about where is my center of that base and how much above and below, and then how much to either side to make it even. And that's where I start working my ellipse shape. Some people find the ellipse actually easier if they turn their sketchbook and do it tall ways first. It's just easier for them to match the two sides. Whatever works for you is totally fine. Once I do that and I'm like, okay, looks pretty good, about where I want it, then my next step is to find the center of the peak. And this particular shape is not a pointed shape. It's kind of rounded off at the top. So we're going to use that. But I find that center rounded off about how wide I want that tip. And then I'm just going to use, you can use literally a piece of paper. We'll give you that straight edge through there. Or you can use the rulers. Now I'm going to get a little bit darker pencil just so you guys can see this well on the video recording. So this one's a B, it's kind of in the middle. I'm going to figure out my shadow over here. This edge, again, as it's closest to the object, is fairly sharp. And then it's going to fade as it gets away from the object. So my object is tan. I mean, it's like a light brown. So I'm going to start by giving myself sort of a base color, because it's definitely darker than the white paper that it's sitting on. Maybe not a ton, but a little bit. And I'm going to bring this tip down just a touch. All right, so I scoot way back on my pencil. I'm back here at the end. I'm going to turn it way over on the side. And I'm just going to very lightly add some value. And I'm really focusing on my light side because I want to figure out what's my lightest value going to be, because I can always make things darker on the dark side, but I want to kind of establish this light side. What's it going to look like? And one of the things you got to pay attention to is how dark your outline is. We don't want a cartoony black outline, because even if the shading is awesome, it still looks like a cartoon. So we really want to push to balance our outline color with the base color that we're creating in the form in that area. So I can go a lot darker on the shaded side of my form than I can on the light side of my form. So like down here where I have this shadow, I can go a lot darker on that. And I can go darker on this side with my outline. And then keep this side light so that it kind of matches my value that's in my object. And then, kind of like we did with the cylinder, we're going to start building the shadow side. And instead of going up and down or at an angle, I'm actually going to work in a kind of arc. And the bottom edge of this form is ever so slightly rounded, and it's picking up just a little bit of that bounced light right at the edge. And I want to establish kind of how far over my next value is going to come. And it comes about 3/4 of the way before it goes to the lightest. And again, I turn it, and then I use a cover page as I knock everything over. So I use a cover page to keep myself from smearing anything else that I've done. But I turn my work because I find it easier to do this kind of arcing little small circle technique if I turn the work. Now I can start getting a lot darker on this side as I start to build my shadow. I cross back in multiple directions. It blurs the lines. And I use this cross contour. Cross contour is basically just doing the shading in the direction of the form. So as this form sweeps around this way, I'm using this cross contour shading to help build more darkness there. So I literally never use my fingers to smear. It's just such a bad technique to use. Your hands have a lot of oils on them. And while the smearing may look great initially, 5-6 years down the line, you will notice that the drawing starts to turn kind of yellow in places, like somebody spilled tea on it. And that's the oils in your hand breaking it down. So the light's coming from up here. This point is getting quite a bright little highlight on it. And then this side is pretty dark. So I'm going to switch now to a darker pencil. So I'm going to go to the 2B. Choke up a little bit closer to the tip so I can increase the pressure a little bit. And I'm going to build a little bit more darkness on this side. And then I blend that line on that side. So notice that that's not a skinny black line that's standing out from the shading. I am blending the shading into it. And then we have the dark shadow right underneath the edge. I just choked up ever so slightly more on my pencil so I can put a little bit more downward pressure. And I don't want this and this to blend because I do want my separation of my edges there. So I'm gonna pop my back shadow just a smidge there. Get my main shadow figured out and then blur the edges out. And basically blurring the edges out just means getting lighter and not worrying so much about keeping inside your lines.